Okay, could you number from 1 to 10 again? This is not an ecologically sound class. Just get it. Okay, the reason I can't be a brilliant, prolific artist is, number 1. Number 2.
The reason I can't be a brilliant, prolific artist is, number 2.
Fill in the blank with whatever leaps to mind, particularly irrational things. 3. The reason I can't be a brilliant, prolific artist is?
4. The reason I can't be a brilliant and prolific artist is?
5. The reason I can't be a brilliant and prolific artist is?
6. The person I blame for my not being a brilliant and prolific artist is? The person I blame. Is that 6? 6. We'll lose track of numbers up here.
One of the
Just get used to
things
it.
that's fun is when we hit pay dirt, you will hear people ask questions. So since we just had a whole little cluster of, what? I would assume we blame people. Okay? 7, 8, and 9, please list 3 creative monsters. Does anybody need to have creative monster explained?
Creative monster is someone who has just trashed either your early work when you were a child or even in your adulthood, doesn't matter when. It's that person that, said, oh, let me do that for you, or told you it was terrible, or said, you can't put those 2 colors together like that.
And I think that it's important to talk about several different stripes of these quickly. One of them is, we all know that if you have a home, if you come from a home where you say, I want to grow up to be a singer, and they burst out laughing and throw eggs at you, this is dysfunction, right? We've got that much. However, it is also possible to be really damaged if you come from a home where people say, you want to be a sweetheart, you can do anything you want. You are so talented. I'm sure you could be president. I see you winning your Oscar.
And then never get you your first acting class or your first singing lesson or your first... Never have the high expectation without helping you start the course to get that expectation, to achieve that goal.
And also without ever saying to you, however, it'll be just about as rough for you as it is for everybody else, okay? So the one kind of home, you get told that your dreams are stupid. The other kind of home, you get told your dreams are possible, but you're never told they're difficult. So when you run into the first little bit of difficulty, you think, I fooled my parents, they're wrong, I'm an imposter, and you quit because you aren't told that it's a process to be creative.
How many people were shamed about their physical capabilities when they were 10 or 11 or 12? You just really can't do that. Nobody ever told me that you can actually build your body or build your skills in sports or dance or art or any of that other thing. And I think sometimes we carry that early physical shaming, and we may be 30 when we realize, hey, I'm in pretty good shape, or I have these skills I could do. I mean, it can wound us for that long, sometimes forever.
Okay, so we have 3 creative monsters.
I want to do one more home. The third kind of home is the indifferent home. We call it bringing home the invisible bone, where, you win the first prize, or you write the first great piece, or you get the lead in the school play, and you come home and tell them, and they go, oh, honey, that's nice.
You
leave the dishes.
You leave the short story or the award-winning thing on the table, and they don't look at it. They put the bowl of soup on it and spill on it, and it sits there unread. This is dragging home the invisible bone.
Has anybody experienced that in this group, where you bring home something? Okay. So I'd like you to look around and see how many hands are up, because that's part of what's great about a big crowd like this, is you can see we're not alone here. There's like half of us. There's 100 people in the room who've had that experience.
I think what we're trying to do here, not to tell you what we're doing and then do it, but that's what we're going to do, is we know that if we aren't functioning creatively, it's because we're lazy. How many people believe that if they aren't functioning creatively, it's because they're lazy?
They're lazy.
Could you please look at the hands?
Yeah. And if you were really meant to be an artist, you'd be up at 5:30, or you wouldn't sleep for months.
How many people know it's a matter of discipline?
Yeah. Wolfgang Mozart, up till you're dead at 26.
How many people know that if they haven't done it by now, who are we kidding? We're all too old.
That's right. That Steven Spielberg had a camera when he was 8 years old, and if I was really going to make movies, I would have had that too.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say, and what Mark is saying, is that we grow up with a belief system that tells us we're not functioning creatively because we're lazy, we have no character, we have no discipline, and we aren't sufficiently driven or gifted. Actually, this is our cultural belief system. We grow up in an art-toxic culture. We all believe the same stuff. We were taught to believe this. It has nothing to do with reality. This is just a belief system about creativity. Get it?
I teach the artist way in a film school at the College of Santa Fe at the Garson Studios, and half the kids in there, right, they come to do film school, and the last thing their father says to them before he puts them on the train is, you're going to end up working in a photo mat. Ouch.
Please list 3 creative champions. These are 3 people who made you feel good about your talent in some form, historically.
Mine is Miss Champions, those who made you feel really supported. It can only be, and to turn a kid around, they call it resiliency research. It's some of the social science stuff that I do, like my new book called The Prodigal Father is about fathers and kids. And the resiliency research is about the factors that'll save a kid from a really negative environment, the worst kinds of environment, because 50% of the kids that come out of the worst families in America don't follow in their parents' footsteps, don't become violent. And so these social scientists, Bonnie Bernard among them, and Dr. Victor Lachurva, started looking at what were those factors, and it was the care and loving support of one adult, not necessarily your parents, sometimes just one thing that they said to a kid. One thing. I have somebody that I know who played college basketball, was an NCAA champion, because somebody when he was 13 said, you could write your own ticket, kid. That's it. 6 words or however many that is.
So 3 compliments that
you remember. 3 compliments.
3 champions, please. Their names. Okay.
Pardon me? What's the question? Compliment. Well, actually, the name and the compliment, the whole shebang. Who they were and what they said, if you remember it.
Yeah. What we're doing is giving you little cues. If you just write down Miss Price and she gave you a compliment, when we get to the part where you break into hideous clusters and share with each other, you'll know the compliment when you get to Miss Price.
She's stealing mine. Miss Price told me when I was 15, where'd you learn to write like that? So she's one of my champions, even though I've never seen her again.
Could you please list 3 people in your current life who are what we call WBs? WBs are wet blankets. 3 people among your current network,
God,
family or friends.
Yeah, I just I got this audition for this commercial, and I went up, and I think I did really well, and the friend says, yeah, but you know what the odds are? It's back to the odds thing. Or you know how hard it is to get into SAG?
Okay. Please list 3 people who are in your current group of friends who are what we would call believing mirrors for you.
Three supporting believing mirrors. The people you can say, I want to write a screenplay, and they'll say, you know what, why don't you come over to my house on Saturday, and we'll just I'll type. You dictate.
You guys are not supposed to be able to read this. Don't worry about it. It's just notes for us on what we've done so far.
Okay, let's talk about some of those artists are stuff. Give us some answers. Let's sort of go to the negative side first. My idea of the artist, the consummate artist that I grew up with was Edgar Allan Poe. You had to be kicked out of 3 universities, have a gambling habit, live in abject poverty, and die a morphine addict after having written 1 perfect poem.
Yeah, that's an artist.
That's the artist. And probably wear black the whole time.
So what we're looking for here is some volunteers. Artists are. Could we hear some words? Could we hear a word, and then we'll look for residents?
Poor. That's that abject poverty thing. Artists are poor.
How many people believe something along the lines of artists are poor? Please look at the collective here.
Right. There are many ways to be poor. This is a collective
belief system. Okay, artists are poor. Could we hear another word?
Immoral. That's right. Promiscuous and unfaithful. They will never come home.
How many people believe some version of that?
How many wish they could believe have one of that version?
How many can't wait to try it?
How many want to be famous specifically for that?
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, could we hear some other words? Artists are...
Alive.
Alive.
All right.
Productive.
Productive. Courageous. Let's stay on the negative first. We'll do the positives afterwards. What came up negative? I want to hear the negatives first. Lazy, arrogant, what? Insane.
Self-centered, crazy. How many people
Tormented, unappreciated. Okay. Okay, so we've got unappreciated, tormented, and crazy. How many people think that if you're going to be an artist, a really famous artist probably, or a very productive artist, you're going to have to be tormented, tortured, and crazy? Anybody have that belief system? I'd like you to look around. There's like...
Look at the collective.
Suffering artist, yes.
How many people believe artists have to really suffer?
That's right.
Oh, let's race out
Good
and
word,
do
Tuck.
it, you guys.
Suffer, that's right.
Misunderstood. How many people believe that if we are truly creative, we are doomed to being misunderstood?
Suffering, misunderstood, crazy, promiscuous, and drunk and poor. We haven't said drunk. How about drugs and alcohol? No? None of you guys think that you have to be an artist? You have to do sex, drugs, and rock and roll or something?
Okay, so do you understand that this is a collective belief system, that we have been taught to think this way about artists? Let's take a little look at how, if it's, I would like to run with this just for a second, with what happens if you have a certain belief system. Let's say you believe that artists are poor. How many people believe artists are poor? Okay, now let's say that you have a second mortgage, you have your 3rd kid in a private school, you have a good law practice, and you've always wanted to write a novel. Okay? Then if your belief system says artists are poor, the corollary of that belief system is you're not an artist, you're a lawyer. If you were really an artist, you wouldn't be putting your children through college, you would not be protecting your financial fiefdom. Do you understand? We don't say, oh, T.S. Eliot worked in a bank.
Wallace Stevens was a stockbroker.
We don't look at that. Instead, what we do is we go, artists are broke, artists are poor, and our very gifts, if we have a gift of financial acuity, we use it as a way to prove to ourselves that we aren't creative. Okay? Let's hear another word.
And I want you to remember that there is no monetary equivalent for joy.
How many people believe if you're an artist you can't have a satisfying, intimate relationship? Artists are alone. Oh. Or else just use people.
How many people think artists use people? Okay.
Okay, let's look at some of the positive possibilities, because these are equally lethal if you don't examine them. Sorry about this.
Okay, so
let's
positive.
hear artists are the positive.
The blonde? Open channels.
Channels.
Okay. Spontaneous.
Okay, so on the days when you wake up feeling that you are an open channel,
fun, spontaneous, and gifted.
Fun and spontaneous. On those days, then you are an artist. On the days when you wake up feeling like you should floss your teeth a third time, you're not so much an artist, because one of the things that we hopefully are beginning to dismantle here, most of us are waiting for the day when we're healthy enough to be an artist. We're going to be well enough, we're going to feel terrific about ourselves, and then we'll start the book. In other words, we're waiting to be in the mood to be an artist.
Or for them to come knocking on the door and say, here's the money, let's see the work. There's a couple things that'll block you, like we said before. One is negative reception, one is indifference, and the other one is if they give you a chunk of money and call you brilliant. I think it was Laurence Olivier who said it was just as important to forget the good reviews. How many people have produced work in here as an artist in some fashion or another? One of the great things about the Artist's Way is that it's about when we take the focus off of any single piece of work and we look at ourselves as building a body of work over time, then we're just doing today's work. It puts us right in today. It answers all the questions for us. I don't have to worry about next week. I have to worry about my 3 pages this morning on the new book. I have to worry about my edition at 1 o'clock. That puts us in a focus because it's no longer living and dying by one piece of work.
One of the things that I think is terminally difficult for all of us is we are living in a society where we confuse process and product. When we read in People magazine about other artists, we don't just drop in on so-and-so because he's a good artist or she's a good artist and they're doing good work. There is always a news hook. We are always dropping in because of the product, the current movie, the current show at the Whitney. We are always being shown not another artist in the process of working, but another artist in the process of winning in terms of marketing. And so part of what we need to dismantle in order to be able to function is this big win idea. You know, that someday we'll get a big enough deal and then we'll be permanently an artist who won't be afraid. When we say, if I had $1 million, I would let myself write a novel, what we are really saying is, if I felt secure enough, because in America, money translates as emotional security. If I were rich enough that I didn't care what they thought about me anymore, then I would let myself play a little bit. Okay?
How many people would do what you really wanted if you had enough money? Guess what? We've worked with a lot of millionaires, and they don't let themselves do what they really want either. Okay, let's get out a piece of paper, please. We're going to talk about raising the jumps in a little while, which is what we were just discussing. One of the things that makes us afraid of our dreams is that we feel like we have to go out and get them all at once. And when we break them down into smaller chunks, we call it raising the jumps, as if you would train a horse to jump. You first walk them over poles laying on the ground, and then you put the jump at 2 inches, and then you put the jump at 2 feet, and you build this thing slowly. That God brings us along like fighters, that we're not. Julia and I taught a lot of very small groups before we taught our first group this big, which was in Chicago a few years ago, and so it's been a while down the pike. And I think you write your next piece of work, and they like it or they don't, and then you write the work after that, and they like it or they don't. But we're going to talk about some of the things that can stop us cold right in the beginning, and one of those things is an internal critic that we call the censor. And we're going to try and root him out or her out right now with a couple of exercises. One of them, this is called affirmations and blurts. I'd like you to write this sentence. I, then your name, am a brilliant and prolific artist. Okay, and now the exercise goes like this. We're going to write that same sentence 10 times. And as you write it, I want you to listen for what in psychology they would call an introject, but that name is irrelevant to us tonight. What we're going to call it is the censor. It's that voice that says, for me it's always the same. I, Mark, am a brilliant and prolific artist. Bullshit. Okay? Now, it gets
So-
more subtle, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I'd like you to just write it as fast as you can, 10 times, and listen to your internal voice, that kind of committee in your head, and see what it says as you write that sentence.
And please write down what it says.
Yes.
If it says bullshit, make a little note, it said bullshit. Okay? So write your blurts down as they pop up.
Let's go. What kind of blurts? Who's got a blurt? When I haven't gotten around to it? If I ever get around to it. Okay. Who are you kidding? How many people have something like, who you kidding? Yeah, right. F you. Anybody F U's? No? Okay. Yeah, okay, there's a few. All right. That's the sort of blanket sarcasm one.
One of the things that we should point out is sarcasm is from the Greek, and it means to cut or tear flesh. And your censor is a bully, and it will always go for your emotional Achilles heel. The first time that I ever did these, they told me I would always be alone, no man would ever love me, and that I would have to change my sexual preference. Right? If that is the price tag on your creativity, who wants to do it? You know, so they will go for the way you are most vulnerable. They will tell you you will be broke if you're terrified about money. They will just be nasty. Also, you should just know it's a nasty little trick that as we keep you moving with doing this by rote stuff, it frees the other side of your brain. This is why you get good ideas when you're driving on the freeway. This is why you get good ideas when you're doing dishes. We're keeping your brain occupied with task A so that the answers and solutions can pop up like toast on the other side. It's a trick. Could we hear more blurts?
So some more? How about back here? Why am I here then? Okay, in the back. I never finish anything. How many people had some version of I never finish anything? It's the you're lazy thing back. Okay. Anybody else over here? Show me.
Show
That's
me.
that sarcastic thing again. Constance, you had one? No, okay. Back. I used to be. Ooh, how many people already has-beens? I did my best work. It's over.
Could we
half
have
of
the hands of the has-beens,
come on, how many
please?
has-beens? We did our best work. We'd have been discovered by now. Okay.
Right.
Got
the
it.
Brilliant starters, right? This is a
Fun.
room full of people who did so brilliantly and then lost heart. Am I correct?
Is that the group mind here? How many people feel they fit that description?
Started brilliantly, lost heart.
Okay.
Haven't started yet at all.
How many
Too
people
old.
is too late? We're just here to sort of play around tonight, and yeah, okay. Nobody will want it anyway. All right, let's go.
All right.
Wait, what was
that's
this? Give me. You think someone would let me? Oh, okay.
All right, I want to point out that nobody would want it anyway is another version of the odds question. All right, I sold 9 movies in a row, and then someone said to me, do you know what the odds are of selling an original screenplay? I said, no. And they told me I didn't sell the next one. It was much better than any of the others. It's still my favorite. No one has ever bought this thing. And there's some little part of me that thinks it just got some voodoo put on it because it's the one script that I know for sure what the odds are. When you set about making a psychic change, you jangle the mobile that you and your friends are a part of. You have all collectively agreed that certain things are possible and certain things are not possible. I remember hanging out with a bunch of screenwriters, and we all agreed that the way to become a feature film director was to be a good boy and a good girl and sell movies to the studio, and then if we were very good, they would eventually let us make a film. Well, I did this for a decade, and I got nosebleeds. And what then happened out of it was, is somebody hissing? Is it because I said a good boy and a good girl, or is it because of the studios?
Oh.
Just checking. I'm sexist, too. Um, so what ended up happening was that I moved to Chicago and shot a feature film using nepotism and students. You know, I used my family. And I remember trying to move and realizing that the reason I was afraid to go was because I believed that movies were made in Hollywood. I didn't believe they were made with cameras. I didn't believe they were made with film. I didn't believe they were made with scripts. I believed they were made by living close enough to the studio gates to make a movie. And we believe a lot of, you know, the long and short of it was I did make a feature film. And I did it by sort of breaking the code on how you were supposed to do it. And what they don't want us to figure out is that we can do it ourselves. And what the Artist's Way is totally about is our figuring out that we can hang our own pictures in our own garages, invite our own friends over, stage our own photo exhibitions, and attract attention from others. I mean, I guess we should say that it's a best-selling book that's never had a major ad campaign. It's a best-selling book because we passed it to other people that we thought might like it. It's a very anarchistic thing. And that's what, every time you decide you're going to take a risk and you say, I'm going to move to Chicago and shoot a feature film, your friends who could move back to Cleveland say things to you like, don't you think you're sabotaging your career? No, I don't think I am. And if I am, all right, I am. So we set off terrible tremors